Welcome to Mark Guy, where we explore self-improvement, motivation, habits, mindset. In today's episode, we're discussing the secret reason men go cold after a breakup. You know what no one tells you about going cold after a breakup? It's not a choice. It's survival. You think you're being strong, maybe even cruel, but your brain is running an ancient program designed to keep you from psychological annihilation. The coldness isn't strength. It's the last firewall between you and complete emotional system failure. Picture this. It's 2 a.m. on a Tuesday. You're sitting in your kitchen, the only light coming from your phone screen as you scroll through her Instagram story for the third time tonight. She's at that new rooftop bar downtown, the one you two talked about trying. She's laughing in someone else's frame now, wearing that black dress you bought her for her birthday. Your thumb hovers over the message button. You type something. Delete it. Type again. The cursor blinks like a heartbeat, but you don't send anything. Instead, you block her. Not because you hate her, but because looking at her happiness feels like swallowing glass. That block button, that's not anger. That's your psyche hitting the emergency brake before you drive off an emotional cliff. This isn't about being petty. It's about cognitive dissonance, that grinding mental state where two truths can't coexist in your head. Truth 1, she was everything to you, the future you'd mapped out in secret conversations with yourself. Truth 2, she's gone, and that future is dead. Your brain can't hold both realities without fracturing, so it does what brains do best. It shuts down the channel, causing the most pain. Psychologists call this emotional numbing as adaptive response. But here's where it gets darker. The coldness men exhibit isn't random. It follows a predictable three-phase pattern that most don't even realize they're running. Phase 1 is the immediate shock response, usually lasting 2 to 3 weeks. You're not cold yet, you're paralyzed. You still check your phone every 7 minutes, still hear phantom notification sounds. Your brain is stuck in what neuroscientists call reward expectation error. You're chemically addicted to her validation, and the sudden withdrawal is creating actual physiological symptoms. Insomnia, loss of appetite, that hollow feeling in your chest that feels like someone scooped out your sternum with a spoon. Then phase 2 hits around week 4, the anger phase. This is where the coldness starts crystallizing. But it's not really about her, is it? It's about the version of yourself you see in the rearview mirror. The guy who sent those desperate texts at 3 a.m. The one who begged for closure when what you really wanted was one more hit of her attention. You're not angry at her for leaving. You're angry at yourself for how much it destroyed you. So you delete the photos, not because you hate the memories, but because each image is evidence of your vulnerability. Every "I love you" text in your history becomes a confession of weakness you can't bear to read. Phase 3 is where most men get stuck, the fortress phase. This is months 2 through 6, sometimes longer. You've rebuilt yourself, but like a city after a bombing, nothing's quite where it used to be. You go to the gym religiously now, not for health, but for the endorphin numbness. You work late not for the promotion, but because an empty office feels safer than an empty apartment. You've become productive, successful even. Your friends say you're doing great, but they don't see you sitting in your car after work, engine running, because walking into your apartment means confronting the silence. But here's the mechanism nobody explains. The coldness is actually grief wearing a disguise. Men aren't socially permitted to grieve relationships the way women are. Where's your support group? Where's your 3-hour phone call with your best friend dissecting every detail? Instead, you get plenty of fish in the sea and hit the gym, bro. So grief morphs into something more socially acceptable indifference. You're not mourning, you're moving on. You're not heartbroken, you're focused. The coldness becomes armor because vulnerability got you nothing but pain. Let me paint you the scene that happens in every man's post-breakup journey. It's month 3. You're at a bar with friends, and everyone's checking out women, making jokes, trying to get you back in the game. A girl approaches. She's attractive, interested, available. She laughs at your jokes, touches your arm. All the signals are green. But when she leans in close, All you can think about is how her perfume is wrong, how her laugh is too high, how she texts with too many emojis. You go home alone, not because you couldn't close, but because trying to feel something for someone new is like trying to taste food with a burned tongue. Everything is ash. Is this healing, or is this damage becoming permanent? The real mindfuck is the social media theater. She posts a picture at brunch with friends, caption, "Choosing happiness." Translation: she's performing recovery for an audience that includes you, even though you're not supposed to be watching. You know she's checking if you viewed her story. She knows you know. It's a silent war fought in metrics. Who watches whose story? Who likes whose posts? Who appears to be winning the breakup? So you go colder. You post nothing for weeks. Then suddenly you're at a concert, surrounded by people, looking like the protagonist of a life she's no longer part of. But what the camera doesn't capture is that you left after 2 songs because the crowd made you feel more alone than solitude ever could. This is where the psychological term protest behavior becomes relevant. Going cold is actually a form of protest, a refusal to participate in the emotional economy that bankrupted you. You're not just avoiding her. You're avoiding the version of yourself that loved her, because that version feels like a security breach in your psychological infrastructure. Every feeling you had, every vulnerability you showed now feels like intelligence you gave to an enemy who used it to destroy you. Can you blame yourself for going cold when warmth led to third-degree burns? The coldness serves another function. It's a test. Deep down, buried under all that ice, is a child's wish that she'll notice. That your absence will create a vacuum that pulls her back. You're not texting her, but you're having full conversations with her in your head every night. You're not calling, but you've rehearsed what you'd say if she called 1,000 times. The coldness is loud. It's screaming, "Look how much I don't need you," while hoping she hears, "I needed you so much that I had to amputate that need to survive." But here's where it gets twisted. Even if she does reach out, you'll probably stay cold, because responding means admitting the coldness was performance, not reality. And that's when reality hits. Month 6, maybe month 8. You're in the grocery store and you see the brand of coffee she always bought. For a split second, you reach for it. Muscle memory overriding logic. Then you remember, she's not coming over Sunday morning anymore. There's no one to make that coffee for. You leave the store without buying anything, sit in your car, and feel something crack inside your chest. Not your heart that broke months ago. This is your armor cracking. The coldness is failing. And for the first time in months, you feel the full weight of what you lost. Not just her, but the future you'd imagined. The kids that looked like her. The house you'd picked out in your mind. The inside jokes that no one else will ever understand. This is the moment most men don't talk about when the coldness stops working. When you realize you've been performing emotional death so convincingly that parts of you actually died. You can't remember the last time you felt genuine joy. Your emotional range has compressed to 3 settings: numb, angry, or asleep. You've become so good at not feeling that you've forgotten how to feel. Is this strength, or is this a different kind of weakness? The intermittent reinforcement of checking her social media becomes its own addiction. Some days she posts nothing, and you feel relief. Other days she posts something cryptic, a song lyric, a sunset photo, and you spend hours decoding it like it's the Rosetta Stone of her emotional state. You know it's pathetic. You know you should stop. But the coldness requires constant maintenance. And monitoring her life from a distance feels like intelligence gathering for a war you're not sure you're winning. Who's really trapped here, her in your thoughts? Or you in this prison of performed indifference? Here's what nobody tells you about male coldness after a breakup. It's not sustainable. It's like holding your breath underwater. Eventually, you have to surface and gasp for air. The men who stay cold forever aren't strong, they're broken in a way that became permanent. They've confused numbness with healing, isolation with independence. They've won the breakup, but lost their ability to connect. Every future relationship becomes a casualty of the war with the past. They love at arm's length, commit with exit strategies, and wonder why every woman feels like a threat instead of a possibility. The truth about going cold? It's a phase, not a solution. It's chemotherapy for heartbreak. It kills the disease, but poisons everything else too. Your boys will applaud your savage mindset. Your ex might even respect your distance. But late at night, when the performance ends and the audience goes home, you're left with the person you've become. Someone who chose numbness over feeling, pride over processing, coldness over the complicated work of actual healing. But here's where it gets interesting. The coldness often creates the exact opposite of its intended effect. She notices your absence more than she ever noticed your presence. Your silence speaks louder than your texts ever did. The less you chase, the more she wonders. It's not manipulation, it's human psychology. We want what withdraws from us. We value what becomes scarce. Your coldness makes you a mystery she might want to solve. But here's the catch-22. By the time she realizes your value, you've often moved past the point where her validation matters. The coldness that started as performance became reality. You wanted her to miss you, but you trained yourself to not miss her. Who won? Who lost? Does it matter when both of you are sleeping alone? Phase 4, the one nobody talks about, happens around month 10. The ice starts to thaw, not in dramatic fashion, but in small, almost imperceptible ways. You hear a song you both loved and don't immediately change it. You see a couple holding hands and feel wistfulness instead of rage. You match with someone on a dating app and actually respond to their message. The coldness isn't gone, it's just tired. You're tired. Tired of performing recovery, tired of pretending you're thriving, tired of the mental energy it takes to maintain the walls. This is when real healing begins, not in the gym or the office or the bar, but in the quiet admission that you loved and lost and survived. The coldness was never strength. Strength is feeling the pain and choosing to continue anyway. The social media dynamics shift too. You stop checking her profiles, not as performance, but as genuine disinterest. The algorithmic suggestions of her face stop making your stomach drop. You see she's dating someone new, and instead of rage or pain, you feel nothing. And somehow that nothing feels different from the manufactured nothing of your cold phase. This is organic indifference, earned through time and distance, not the synthetic indifference you injected into your veins like emotional morphine. You're not cold anymore. You're just elsewhere. Your attention has finally found new coordinates. But let's talk about what coldness costs. Every wall you build to keep her out also keeps everyone else at arm's length. Your friends notice you've changed. You're present, but not really there. You laugh, but it doesn't reach your eyes. You show up, but you don't open up. The coldness that protected you from her has isolated you from everyone. You've become the guy who's fine when anyone asks. But nobody really knows how you are because you've forgotten how to be anything other than fine. Is this healing or is this hiding? Are you moving on or just moving away from everything that reminds you what it's like to feel? The workplace becomes your sanctuary because it's the only place where emotional coldness is rewarded. You're professional, focused, driven. Your productivity skyrockets because work is the only relationship you can control. Input equals output. Effort equals reward. There's no ghosting in spreadsheets, no mixed signals in quarterly reports. Your boss loves the new you. Your bank account grows. But Sunday afternoons stretch like centuries, and success feels hollow when you have no one to share it with. You're winning at life on paper while losing at living in reality. Here's where men get stuck in a loop. The coldness works well enough to avoid pain, but not well enough to create joy. You're not depressed, but you're not happy. You're not lonely, but you're alone. You're not broken, but you're not whole. You exist in this gray zone where nothing hurts, but nothing feels good either. It's like living on emotional Novocaine functional, but numb. And the longer you stay in this zone, the more normal it becomes. You forget what it felt like to feel deeply. You forget that numbness isn't the absence of pain. It's the absence of everything. The midnight honesty sessions with yourself reveal the truth. You don't miss her specifically anymore. You miss the version of yourself who could love that completely. The guy who sent good morning texts and meant them. Who planned surprises and felt excitement. Who believed in forever and wasn't embarrassed by it. The coldness didn't just freeze her out. It froze parts of you that you're not sure how to thaw. You've become so good at not caring that you've forgotten how to care. And that's scarier than any breakup could ever be. Women don't understand male coldness because they process differently. They call their friends, they cry, they journal. They feel it all at once like ripping off a Band-Aid. Men? We process in silence, in solitude, in the gap between who we were and who we're becoming. The coldness is our processing. It's just that nobody recognizes it as such. We're not avoiding the work. We're doing it in a language that doesn't translate. Every workout is a therapy session. Every late night at the office is meditation. Every drink alone is a conversation with our ghosts. We're healing. It just looks like hardening from the outside. But here's the paradox that breaks most men. The qualities that help you survive the breakup often sabotage your next relationship. You've learned to need no one, but partnership requires need. You've mastered emotional control, but love requires vulnerability. You've built independence, but intimacy requires interdependence. The very strengths you developed in your cold phase become weaknesses when it's time to warm up again. You're like a soldier returning from war, trained for battle, but lost in peace. How do you tell the next woman that you love her when love feels like loading a gun and handing it to someone who might shoot you again? The cold phase creates its own mythology. You tell yourself stories about why it ended, each version making you more of the hero and her more of the villain. You forget the fights you started, the promises you broke, the ways you failed her. The coldness requires a clean narrative. She left, you survived, end of story. But relationships don't end in single moments. They die from 1,000 cuts, many of them self-inflicted. The coldness prevents you from examining your own blade. It's easier to be the victim than to be accountable. It's simpler to say she was wrong than to admit you both were. And then one day could be month 12. Could be year 2 something shifts. You're at a wedding, watching two people promise forever, and instead of cynicism, you feel hope. You meet someone new, and instead of comparing her to your ex, you see her for who she is. You realize the coldness has served its purpose. It got you through the winter, but spring is coming, and ice has to melt for anything to grow. You understand finally that going cold wasn't about her. It was about you. It was about survival. It was about rebuilding. It was about becoming someone who could lose everything and still continue. The secret reason men go cold after a breakup isn't complicated. It's protection. But protection from what? Not from her, but from the truth that love requires risk, that caring means potential pain, that opening up means possible rejection. The coldness is a vow. Never again. Never again will I be that vulnerable. Never again will I hand someone that much power. Never again will I love like that. But here's what the coldness doesn't tell you. Never again is just another prison. It's safety, but it's also solitude. It's protection, but it's also isolation. The final phase, the one that takes years to reach, is integration. You realize the cold phase was necessary but not permanent. Like a cast on a broken bone, it served its purpose, but staying in it too long causes its own damage. You learn to be warm but boundaried, open but not exposed, vulnerable but not victimized. You understand that the opposite of coldness isn't heat, it's choice. The choice to feel when it's safe. The choice to trust when it's earned. The choice to love when it's worth the risk. You see her somewhere, a coffee shop, a mutual friends party, the grocery store, and for the first time you feel normal. Not cold, not hot, just normal. You can smile and mean it, ask how she is, and actually care about the answer. You realize the person you were protecting yourself from doesn't exist anymore. She's changed. You've changed. The war you've been fighting ended months ago. You just kept showing up to an empty battlefield. Coldness wasn't protecting you from her. It was protecting you from the memory of pain. But memories can't hurt you unless you let them. Here's what men discover at the end of their cold journey. Warmth isn't weakness. Feeling isn't failure. The coldness was a season, not a permanent climate. You needed it to survive the winter of losing her, but staying frozen means missing every spring that follows. The men who remain cold forever aren't strong. They're scared. Scared to risk again. Scared to feel again. Scared to discover that maybe, just maybe, the next love could be different. Better. Realer. Worth the risk of another winter. The truth about male coldness after a breakup? It's not about her. It never was. It's about a man trying to reconcile who he was with who he needs to become. It's about learning that love isn't possession and loss isn't death. It's about discovering that you can survive having your heart broken, which means you can risk having it broken again. The coldness is just the space between the ending and the beginning, the pause between the last chapter and the next book. And maybe that's the secret. The coldness isn't the problem. It's the solution to a problem that eventually solves itself. Time passes, pain fades, perspective shifts. The man who went cold isn't the same man who emerges from winter. He's someone who learned that feeling nothing is worse than feeling pain. That isolation is lonelier than rejection. That the walls that keep hurt out also keep life out. The coldness teaches its own lesson, that choosing to feel again isn't weakness. It's the ultimate strength. The men who go cold after breakups aren't broken. They're breaking. Breaking old patterns, old dependencies, old versions of themselves that no longer serve. The coldness is the chrysalis, ugly and rigid and necessary. What emerges depends on whether you let the transformation complete or whether you get stuck in the cocoon. Neither caterpillar nor butterfly. Just frozen potential. The choice is yours. The cold is temporary, unless you choose to make it permanent. But here's the thing about choosing permanent winter. You miss every spring that was meant for you. You miss the woman who would have loved you right. You miss the version of yourself capable of deeper love. You miss the lesson that heartbreak was trying to teach you, that you're stronger than you knew, that loss isn't the end, that the capacity to love again is the truest measure of healing. The coldness protects you from pain, but it also protects you from possibility. And possibility, that's where life actually happens. So when you see a man go cold after a breakup, understand what you're really seeing. Not cruelty, but survival. Not strength, but fear. Not moving on, but holding on to the only control he has left. The ability to feel nothing rather than feel everything. It's not the best solution, but sometimes it's the only solution that makes sense when your world has stopped making sense. The coldness is a bandage on a wound too deep for stitches, a tourniquet on hemorrhaging hope, a cast on a broken spirit trying to reset itself. The secret reason men go cold after a breakup is simple, because warmth failed us, and we don't know what else to try. But coldness fails too, just slower, quieter, in ways we don't notice until we've forgotten how to thaw. Until someone new touches our face and we flinch. Until someone says, "I love you," and we can't say it back. Until we realize we've become so good at leaving that we've forgotten how to stay. The truth is, going cold is just grief in a suit and tie, pretending to be strength.